welcome to the Nurse Boss Shift. It's your girl, Dr. Kiiyonna Jones.
And I'm Crystal P, the hormone in P.
Woohoo! And you guys, this episode is a very special episode. Chris, it's something that you and I kind of decided to tackle sort of last minute. So we're only going to be able to talk about these topics over the next couple of weeks. It's kind of in honor of Black History Month, but also with all the things that are going on with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we decided to integrate that into this episode, into this month. So over the next 2 episodes, we're going to kind of be tackling it. I don't know. I actually wanted to talk about it because it's such a buzzword right now. And I didn't really understand it myself. I felt like when everything was happening, I was kind of getting a little bit confused. And so, Chris, I want us to just, during this conversation, explore what we thought about DEI prior to the shift in administration and as far as the government, what our thoughts about DEI is now, and then how we think that kind of wraps into our profession and even us as entrepreneurs. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
All right, cool. So I guess my first question, well, let's first of all kind of set the stage. As you guys know, we're here in the United States, and there's been a change in the government administration, right? Presidential election every 4 years. That's what we do. And this year, though, this time, the president has been really focusing on like dismantling DEI, and now it's almost kind of become like negative, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And a lot of any issues I've noticed, especially recently, he's been in office for over 2 weeks now. And then recently it's just been like everything is like because of DEI. So I want to, first of all, before I talk to you about it, Crystal, I want to just give a definition of what DEI is first, okay? So this is the official definition. It stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it refers to policies and practices that promote the representation and participation of different groups of individuals, including those of different ages, races, ethnicities, abilities, gender, religions, and sexual orientation. It aims to create a fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all, while eliminating barriers and discrimination. What are your thoughts on that? Is that what you thought it was?
Yeah, kind of. I knew most of the people when I heard DEI, it was, to be honest, it was, my Black friends who were working in DEI. I knew that it had to do more than just Black people. I knew that it had to do with making everyone feel inclusive. I didn't really understand where its place was kind of in the workplace as far as, I know DEI consultants. So it was kind of like, what does that mean? But they were able to kind of tell me what it meant. So I had a little clue of what DEI meant. But, now doing more research, I definitely know who benefits from that and how it really is, impactful in society as a whole.
When did you start hearing about it, though? Would you say, can you kind of think about when, because before, of course, the election, but like, do you ever recall hearing about it and thinking, oh, I wonder what this is, or in your career?
Not so much, and definitely not in my career as a nurse, but like I said, just running into people who did DEI. So I thought that was cool, like, oh, you get to go work on these initiatives that we fought so hard for in workplaces. But I always thought it was something, and the person that I knew who did this she owned her own business. So I didn't even know that they really had these groups working, official, like, I guess, programs and things in different organizations. I didn't know that aspect of it. I really thought it was people being consultants for, like when Gucci puts out these crazy ads, or when, was it Target or Old Navy, had a Black kid with a monkey shirt on. I thought it was people who basically went into companies and basically taught them how to not be racist. That was probably my understanding of what DEI was.
Okay. For me, I don't recall really hearing about DEI until the George Floyd incident.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Mm-hmm.
was when at least I know it was definitely a big thing during that time. Just these larger companies really were investing into understanding DEI and being able to create environments that were inclusive. And of course they did that because they saw the value of having a diverse workforce. And I was thinking about, and when I heard about it, even then it was more like you said, consultants, people who were going in companies and like training their teams on DEI. And then I started hearing about like roles that were being created in organizations about DEI. And that's pretty much all I knew about it. But it wasn't never a negative association with it. But I do see that now that's kind of where we're going with it, which is why we're having this conversation. So I think it's a good time to just clarify that there's no DEI law that exists, but there are laws and regulations that do support the diversity, equity that does support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, once I read the definition, I was like, okay, I don't see that this is a bad thing. In fact, when I officially read it, I said, the thing about it is like, I've worked in inner city community, and I've also worked on the west side of LA. And those who are not from LA, the west side of LA is more higher SES groups on the west side versus in South LA, which is a hospital that I also worked at. Of course, you can imagine more vulnerable population. Our community was more Black and brown patients. And it's such a trip because and I was working there at the same time in the same role. Okay. So I was house soup in both locations. And I recall very, very often working in the inner city, and there would be, Black people who were, I want to just say they were directly from the community, and their medical treatment was being managed by people who did not look anything like them. And I would notice often the treatment that they received that was vastly different from the treatment that the people on the west side received, even medical treatment. And I think a big reason for this was because a lot of times we are not medically wise. Well, there's a lot of stereotypes. And then also, I just feel like when people who don't look like you, who haven't really truly studied you, are making medical decisions about you, it could negatively affect your outcomes. I just really truly believe that. And so I'll give you just a perfect example. Black people are disproportionately affected by sickle cell. And so our sickle cell patients would come in and automatically they were automatically labeled seeking. And I mean, when I tell you, you know how much pain they're in. And they would give them I had one doctor who just blatantly refused to give out any narcotics. Like, he put you on Tylenol in a minute and give you maybe some Tylenol with codeine, but he was not giving you any type of narcotics. He really refused, and he was a medical physician. And I, as a nursing supervisor, had to advocate for these patients. First of all, I have a sickle cell trait. So I did a lot of research myself in nursing school about the actual disease, and it's not studied enough. I don't think it's because of who is affected by it. But the truth of the matter is, I would go on the west side, and those patients would be given enough narcotics to put a horse down for chronic back pain. And the labeling was totally different. And I do equate this to the fact that there's not enough of us to be able to advocate for us. And so here you have this chronic back pain person, and these doctors are saying, well, they have built up a tolerance. It was way softer and nicer versus the experience that I had in South LA, where they were very clearly saying, oh, like they're seeking, oh, they were just here, they can't be in that much pain, or they're just sitting there, they're not like moaning, I can't tell that they're in pain. It's like, wow. But in nursing school, we were taught pain is what the patient says it is. But the truth of the matter is, it depends on who says it. And I believe that types of regulations that support inclusivity helps put people in positions that they can actually advocate for people who look like us, because we're going to be the ones who study them. We are the ones who are a part of the community. So who best can advocate for them than the people that look like them? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So Yeah, same thing. When you were telling that story, I was just thinking of, the sickle cell patient probably has built up a tolerance. Obviously, they've been dealing with this pain and getting pain meds for a long time, but it's definitely, as you say, it's completely different, depending on what side of town you are on, depending on if your medical provider has these biases. And, and just to your point of having people in place to be inclusive, to have people in place who can advocate for these patients. And DEI is not a matter of, and I think that's where the confusion is. It's not a matter of hiring, Jamal off the street because he's black, and has no qualification. Is going out of these companies going out of their way to say, you know what, Jamal lives on this side of town. He may not have, his dad may not be golfing with such and such medical recruiters, dad, where I can get him into college. Let's go out and seek these people who are well qualified, who can bring more diversity to our organization so that they can advocate for these patients. So, I think that DEI gets such a bad rap because a lot of people are miseducated in thinking that it only puts unqualified Black people in positions that they are not qualified for, but that's not even what DEI means or stands for.
Yeah. What's interesting, I was as I was doing research for this episode, I was like, all right, so there's about 4 million nurses in the United States. Like, how many nurses are Black? And there's actually about 11.4% that are Black. Of course, as we start to stratify for education, we are more at the RN level. And as we go up to like master's degree is less. And then PhD, it's almost immeasurable because it's just not very much of us, or even the DNP level. So like terminal degree. And in the US, there are over 360 million people. And believe it or not, we make up about 14%. So as it pertains to nursing itself, we're almost there, which feels good because you want it to be like equal to the population. So if there's 14%, ideally our goal should be to have 14% of the workforce as nurses. The difference, I think where things get a little kind of gray is the fact that nurses are not necessarily working in areas that are serving our population. I think that is just because there's representation in the nursing workforce. The problem is not all of us are able to be in the communities where we can actually speak and be a voice for our patients. And I think that is a huge issue. And that is what DEI, where I think the kind of benefits of considering that. So if you are serving a predominantly Black population and you're a physician or you're a nurse practitioner or you're a nurse, it just makes sense to me that you are going to have more Black and brown nurses in those and doctors to improve the likelihood that the outcomes will be better for the patients. And to me, that's how I see diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I was looking up some of the regulations that are actually kind of uphold, I guess you would say, DEI. And the Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which just basically says you cannot discriminate for employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. I mean, to me, that's just simple, right? Like, am I crazy? Is there something?
And it also speaks to those who think that's what DEI is. It's actually illegal to hire someone just based on their race.
Exactly. And so then another law is the Equal Pay Act. Hello, requires employers to provide equal pay for equal work, regardless of gender. Women. I mean, in our nursing workforce, we see it even still to this day with DEI, that our male nurses are getting paid more than our female nurses. And the whole reason for this law was because of the gender inequality when it comes to pay. And so why would we not want I'm just so confused. And I even try to think about, okay, how could this be a negative? Because I do know that there's always two sides to a coin. How could this be a negative if this is a positive in equal pay of the Equal Pay Act of 1963? How could this be negative? And I guess the way it could be negative is people could manipulate it somehow. But I don't exactly know how, but I guess people could actually manipulate. What you think?
I don't think that is negative at all. I think that people are just misinformed about what it means. and they're trying to skew it one way so that this country can get back to what they want it to be,
Mm.
which is straight white men. So I think that any fear of that not being, or, you know, this country getting more and more diverse, which is a beautiful thing. I think that they're trying to spin this again into saying that it's, you know, we all have equal opportunity. That's what they'll say. You know, Black women are the most educated women, or educated group. Yeah, that's the word. Most educated group out of everybody. Does our nation show that? No, it doesn't. So, you know, to be the thought that we all have equal opportunity. Well, if, you know, you have a law degree, I have one, we both have the same opportunities, and that's not true. So I think where the negative comes in is people trying to sway it to mean that, again, unqualified people are just getting a chance just because of their race, or just because of their sexual orientation, or just because of their disabilities. And that's not true. It's people who are very qualified, and it's just going, you know, out of your way to seek those people and make initiatives so that everyone has equal access. But I think that it's trying to be swayed into a negative, and then you get people on this bandwagon thinking that that's what it is, and that's when it's not. So there is no negative to it, but when you try to skew it that way, then, you know, you can get a group of people who believe these things, and then, you know, that's what we're seeing playing out in this administration already 2 weeks in, a couple weeks in.
Of course, we have to. Okay, there's a couple more laws I just want to tap on. That we have the Fair Housing Act that also prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Y'all can in the comments tell us, am I crazy? Like, what's wrong with that? And then the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, which protects individuals from discrimination based on pregnancy or related conditions. So allowing fathers to have paternity leave, allowing moms to have extended maternity leave, them not being able to hire you simply because you are pregnant, or even fire you because you are pregnant. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. But the truth of the matter is, these laws and regulations are basically rooted in DEI. And so when we talk about eliminating DEI, I want people to understand what we're really eliminating. Like, and no one is saying an unqualified person should get a position based on their color or their religion or their gender. They should not. But you cannot tell me that they're not qualified. It requires a corporation to seek out qualified people of different groups, which I think should be the case, especially if your market includes people who are of different racial groups, which is what the United States is made of, right? No. Am I crazy?
Not at all. Not at all. And in researching different things that DEI helps with, as you were talking about mothers, it also helps with, you know, making a nursing room so that we have a space to go when we're breastfeeding, or having a handicap accessible elevator. Or, you know, if I was hearing a story about someone who had an injury and they weren't able to type, well, having equipment in there so that they can, you know, I guess it scans your eyes and they're able to type. So that's the, I guess, inclusion part of it. So I don't understand why people are thinking that this is a negative at all, when you think about just these human rights that we should have being accessible to us.
And it's so crazy though, because, you know, it's kind of gotten labeled now as this, you know, bad, you know, thing for the United States. And I really, you guys, I was trying to research and really find out something bad about it. I wanted to find something, because I know my perspective, but for me, my opinions are shaped when I can read or listen to other people's perspectives. So I can, like, either say, you know, that I agree with that or I don't. And I think diversity is just beneficial for us all, you guys, especially here we're not a monolith for sure. And we're not in a country where, it's just one group. Like, we're such a melting pot, but I feel like there's this power play that's happening right now. And I think that's ultimately what this is trying to get to. This is my opinion, but I really feel like it's to make sure that a certain group of people are in charge. That's what they want.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why they're trying to roll back on the DEI. Now, recently, Target has lost a lot of money. They were one of the first larger corporations that said, we're going to roll back our DEI. And because they did that, they lost 22%. Their stock value declined 22%. So that's more than $15 billion when they decided they were going to do that. In addition to that, people are boycotting Target right now. Shareholders are suing them. Listen, I know the majority group that are like not, okay with DEI, but these corporations have to understand that, the people who are purchasing from them are us. Yep. And we have financial power. And I think, before we just start to say what we're not going to do, or before they say what they're not going to do, the best thing to do is listen to what your consumers have to say about it. And I don't think they did that. So I just think that, when it comes to the corporations, that this is something that has to be considered. But more importantly, you guys, we're going to talk to you on the next episode on how entrepreneurship can help support DEI, but not necessarily support DEI, but just supporting diversity and being able to help our own communities, especially those communities that are disenfranchised, that are more vulnerable. I think us as nurses we're in the best position to come in and be the voice for them and also support them where they are with the needs that they have, especially as it pertains to healthcare needs. I read somewhere that women who are in entrepreneurship creates more jobs. They inject more empathy in the marketplace as well. And we are actually able to serve on a much higher level because of our emotional positioning as women, and which most nurses are women. So when we talk about nurses entering entrepreneurship, we have to consider the value that we bring into the marketplace as well. So on the next episode, that's what we're going to tackle. Before we head out, Chris, is there anything else you want to add about DEI, just as it pertains to just a little bit of background about it or your position or anything like that before we head out?
I think that, most of these programs, as you said, or the dismantling of DEI, it was more on a federal level. And then these private companies try to, saying they're in fear of getting sued and things like that. But you see companies like Costco who took a big stand and said that they're going to continue their DEI efforts. I will say, in researching for this episode, I saw that supposedly Target is not dismantling their DEI. They're making it something different. So I don't know if that was before or after. I haven't researched that far into to see, if they got scared because their stock went down. Because I feel like if they were just revamping the program, that would be pushed out to the media to bring their customers back. But it doesn't seem that that's been happening. So yeah, I think this is just a testament to why, as we'll talk about in the next episode, it is the time to, start your own businesses or start thinking about that, especially if you're someone who wants to advocate for DEI and being inclusive to all people. Now is the right time to start building your brand to offer that. And then, being able to promote that you are someone who advocates for DEI, because I feel like that will bring the customers and the employees that you want to make your business just a better business all around, because we do see that more diverse companies operate better, earn better, and, just do better. So I'm looking forward to talking about that next time.
Yay. So you guys know we never leave you guys hanging. We always have actionable steps for you to take. But because we're doing like this little 2-part series, the next action that we're going to tell you to take is to make sure that you listen to the next episode, because there we're diving into DEI and entrepreneurship. So make sure you stay tuned. Give us your comments, your feedback, you guys. It is definitely a topic that, I think a lot of people need to be discussing and really understand, like, what's your position in DEI? Do you think it's even necessary? And you don't have to necessarily be a person of color, but I feel like one of the challenges we have is we don't share our perspective. Like, where do you stand with it? And really the only way you can know is take the time and get interested. Okay, you guys? So do your research, see what it's about to really understand what your own position is. And then tune in to us next week. If you have anyone who is a nurse and into entrepreneurship or is involved in healthcare and want to get in and dive into entrepreneurship, make sure you share this podcast. Don't gatekeep, you guys. Make sure you download and just let us know what you like to hear from us, you guys, because we are really trying to create a space where we are serving you at the highest level. And the way that we do that is you share with us what you like for us to talk about or what your challenges are. All right, you guys, until next time, we'll see you next week. Bye. Or talk to you next week. Bye.